Like, I'm gonna kill you if you don't edit this.
Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody. It's April 26th. I'm Ryan Miller, and you look really cool. It's Matt Andrew.
Thank you. I do look really cool. Is it my headband or is it my frosted tips?
Either, but I guess in keeping with our movie of the week, that might be close. I've decided to just take a line from the movie we watched this week.
It was
to
good.
Introduce you.
Yeah, no,
right?
I liked it. I do look really cool. And I know it's neither of those guys that looks really cool, but
I don't know. That sounds like a pretty accurate description of Cliffy B, who is cool.
Pretty cool. Not a movie guy.
Oh, wait. This is the movie. You're right.
Yeah, we're on the movie show.
This is Book Club for Movies, everybody, where we watch a movie once a week without fail, at least. You know us. And then talk about it right here on this show with a couple extras thrown in at the end. This week, I hear it's got the same title as a video game.
Partially. Somewhat.
Probably because it existed before the video game. Shares some things with the video game. Again, this is the movie podcast. It's Battle Royale.
Battle Royale, rolling in at an hour and 45 minutes. Directed by Kinji Fukasaku. Written by Kenta Fukasaku, based on a novel by Koshin Takami. Movie stars Tatsuya Fujiwara, Aki Maeda, and Taro Yamamoto.
Good, it's good enough.
Synopsis, here we go.
Okay.
After the total and economic. Here we go. Synopsis.
Is that Japanese? I didn't
Synopsis.
get
After the total economic and social collapse in Japan, their government installs a new law, the Battle Royale Act. To combat the collapse, a random class of 9th grade students from around the country is chosen and forced to play a game of life and death on a deserted island where only one is allowed to survive, lest they all be murdered. 42 students were brought to the island. 41 of them will not be leaving. Like that?
That's good.
That's pretty good.
I did like that. And I did like the movie, actually, as well.
Did you? Did you like it?
Yeah.
Cool.
We're going to continue.
All right, let's go to the next part of the show.
Yeah. I also watched, I'm not going to tell you that nice.
Battle Royale. That's what I call it because all the kids are bratty little teenage nothings.
Welcome to Prattle Royale with Matt and Ryan. Today it's going to be...
We're going to chitty chatty.
Bang, bang.
Like chatty Cathy's.
So this movie is some old school Japanese cinema, it turns out.
2000.
It is. So, okay, I should qualify that. Shot in some old school Japanese style. There's like, think back to like, samurai movies and whatnot.
Oh,
These are
sure,
the bloody
sure.
ones, I guess
Yeah.
is what I'm saying.
Yeah, this follows along the line of those early or mid 70s samurai where a slice indicates 7,000 gallons of blood that just fantastic, and I love it.
Lots of long shots, lots of zoom lenses, lots of zooming in both slowly and quickly at times.
Right.
Lots of flat colors. It seems like this movie looks amazing.
Which is interesting too, because like that they were able to pull those colors out when you're in a really lush, dense jungle.
Yeah.
And those areas you know that they oversaturated and desaturated in spots because you can just tell how beautiful that area probably is.
Well, yes, somebody saw this and said, "Hey, we can make a video game that's just very brown all the time."
It just go with it's the brown note. That's what we call it. That's what it's Player Unknown's brown
hole, blue hole. This is dumb.
What are we doing? Let's talk about Battle Royale.
What are we doing?
Battle Royale. Yeah, this is a movie that it does have a great look to it. It very much so. After it was made in 2000. It feels like it was made. I mean, it feels kind of like this is maybe a weird thing to say about a movie like this, but it's very timeless in a way where I feel like this movie, even today, even now, like I watch that and I go, that still like looks and feels like a modern movie while not being one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It doesn't look like somebody doing a bad impression of these old themes or something like
that.
Right.
Like it was there was care there and
practical effects.
Love the practical effects.
Yeah,
yep. There's
crafted.
There's some great a couple of this is a movie about kids killing each other, so it does come down to some violence, and there's a couple of nice.
Is it?
Oh. A couple of nice gore effects. Nothing super out there, but there's like one nice like throat slit, and she has totally that spray of blood that's like obnoxious comes out of her throat.
Yeah.
There's one arrow into the head that's pretty good. But yeah, for the most part, it's kind of funny how violent the movie is. It's not as violent as you'd think, and it's a lot more gun violence than anything. It's just bullet wounds.
Yeah, and honestly, that's barely the thing. Like, it is kids, right? It is them all pitted against each other on this island, but it's used to let kind of all of these adolescent inadequacies and clumsiness play out still.
Right. It's like it's a game of war. It's like it's the imaginary game of war, except they're given actual weapons and there's consequences.
Yeah, definitely. So they do put him on this island. The teacher is played by Takeshi Kitano. No, wait, that's his name in real life and in the movie. Look at that. All right. Who doesn't so much act as be in the movie in the best way.
Right.
Like if he's pretty expressionless the whole time, but he's given it's played against like this amazing introductory video that he plays to all the kids who appear unfamiliar with the Battle Royale act. Like that's kind of fuzzy because it starts off with the press kind of coming at one of the winners of a Battle Royale, and it's this girl who gives a really creepy smile. But then when these kids are thrown into it, it's kind of like they need this video to be like, this is what's going to happen. And they're like, no way, this can't actually be happening. And then a few kids die in the process, and then they realize that it's for real. They're all given their bags full of randomly generated weapons.
It's all procedural generation.
Yes. So the teacher just does a fantastic job with both while that video plays, because he's like participating with it, because it's this really happy girl talking about like how they're all
going to kill each other.
Yeah, and he's like clapping, and like anytime she asks a question, like he answers it and stuff. It's just a perfect setup.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fun to watch. Just also, it's a perfect setup for what this movie's going to be.
For sure.
Which is, again, ostensibly that all these kids are pitted against each other on this island, but it's so stylized, and the way it's presented is each time I joke when I say randomly generated, but this movie is presented kind of in that way. Like it's zero surprise they made a video game out of this. In the way that they did, whatever they did take, it's not a 1-to-1, but you know what I'm talking about.
It's the inspiration is very clear, and it's very, it's like, it's a good inspiration.
Well, because the presentation also, there are literal titles that come up on the screen in two different areas, but one of them is when anybody dies, and it's like kid number whatever gives his name and then said died,
right.
That comes up physically on the screen, like hard coded into the movie. Like this is being presented to the viewer as game show in a way. And not to people in the movie so much as that, except for that very beginning, like I said, with all the media and stuff like that. But that's almost could have been removed. Like it's
well, the one thing that they mentioned in that media sequence at the beginning is that and I think this kind of speaks to why the kids don't know about it, is number one, information going to school and all that stuff is fairly locked down. But they also mentioned the fact that that part of the reason for the Battle Royale Act even being implemented is that parents were not being listened to in the first place. And then Kitano outright says, like, during his speech, like when he's pausing the video, he mentions that the kids have no respect, and that's a problem. And so my assumption, and kind of at least my headcanon for the movie, was the parents are so ignored that they put this together, and the kids are just kids can't. What are they going to do? They're on a bus going on their school trip, and then they're suddenly all knocked out, and then they're on the island.
That kids wouldn't know about recently passed legislation, I guess, not that unbelievable.
It's not. It wouldn't be shocking. No, I mean, it's presented as like the movie is literally presented to us the moment the kids are taken from the bus. And they're actually there's a portion where he's gone through the video, and they start they go through telling all of the people's names and giving them their pack with the food and then their weapons, which they don't, they're just in a bag, so they don't know what the weapon is. that's the moment that the movie stops being a movie and becomes a game show, because at that point they start saying every kid's name, and we go through the 39 kids that are left, I think, or 38 kids that are left.
Yeah.
It goes through every single one. Every single one has their own kind of flourishy exit or entrance, into the game. And that is the point where
including 2 transfer students, we should probably mention.
Right. And the 2 transfer students who obnoxiously, when they walk in, you go, well, they don't look like they're in the 9th grade unless they're real idiots, which you find out they are idiots. No. But it is presented in that game show fashion for so much of the movie. And then you get, there are these moments of kind of respite where
and that's it though. Yeah, no,
it's not. It's like the comparison that I make is that when you have a game show that's like a live game show, there are the judges, and so you get the points where your respite is you go back to Kitano, who is the judge essentially, who's like he's sitting there in the control room. And those are those kind of like a backstage moment. Here's what they're doing. And it's,
right.
It's that. It was like, that's where the commercial break would be for the regular viewer.
But while at the same time, none of the drama is taken out, I guess is what I'm saying. So it becomes, with those titles, and also the second type of titles that show up are these kind of weird, kind of poetic, and they're complete interstitials, I think. It's like a Charlie Chaplin movie.
Yeah.
Like that's everything on the screen. Like it's completely black with the words, and it'll be like poetic utterances and stuff like that. So it becomes like it takes on like total shades of like Doctor Strangelove, or even probably Full Metal Jacket, which I haven't seen enough of, in the way that it is kind of just this absurd envelope that I guess maybe is where we get into the adolescent trappings of it.
Sure.
Because where this movie just completely is the best thing ever for me are when they take kind of these, like I said, this clumsiness and all these, like the kids, high school kids, whatever, are just a pile of
emotions and hormones. That's what they are. It's emotions and hormones.
Like just all this weirdness, and in so many clumsy ways, which the way it's all contextualized into this battle royale thing is where it shines for me. Like the transfer students are a perfect example, because transfer students are scary. Like nobody knows for sure about them, and that's exactly what they are in this murder game show.
Right.
They're the wild cards, which one ends up being good, one ends up being bad.
Yeah.
So as the movie goes on, kids die, like things play out. The focuses become between Noriko and Shuya, who didn't necessarily, like, he had a crush on somebody else. Like crushes come into this. This is where it gets great, right? Like none of the high school drama is thrown by the wayside in this thing.
No, and I think that actually I'm going to interrupt you on this real quick because I think what you're getting to a point where you're touching on one of those themes, which is, it's such an obvious theme in this movie, but there is a theme about growing up, and it's not just about the kids growing up either. It's about the entire concept of people got so annoyed with kids that they were like, you know what? They threw a hissy fit and created a game for them to kill themselves for your pleasure. Like, if that isn't as childish as you can get, it's like
the weirdest adult power fantasy.
No, it totally is. And Kitano, who's like running this thing, they make it pretty clear that he's in charge of this to a point, but it doesn't sound like he's always the one that's there. But he was the teacher that they all had, so they all actually knew him as their teacher. So all of those kids were super familiar with it. And then, there's another step to that crops up further towards the end, but it comes back down to that he makes that point throughout the entire his speech about respect and about all this stuff, and about how they're all children, and he himself acts like a child. He's a bully. He acts like a bully.
Well, oh man, he's such a complicated character.
And
Up
he
until
is
the very end. That guy,
super complicated character, and even at the end, he's super complex.
It's crazy though the way they do it though too. We'll get there. So maybe the two scenes that stand out for me when I talk about all this stuff are, number one, there's as Noriko and Shuya go, he ends up with a girl he didn't necessarily have a crush on, but they get separated, and he's picked up by the girl he did technically have a crush on, and he wakes up in, I think it's a lighthouse.
Was it was something? Yeah, maybe. I don't remember if it's a lighthouse or if it's
found, and these girls have teamed up, so it's a group of girls. One of them was his actual crush or his supposed girlfriend, or the one I think he was supposed to be into, or something like that.
Yeah. The one who
expected, relationship.
Right. The one who wakes him up.
Yes, and is like, I dressed all your wounds, and it was the first time I ever touched a man. Like the movie is full of those amazing lines, like cutesy little, like, even below high school type lines that kids would say.
And keeping in mind though, like, and I love that you mentioned this because you've mentioned it before, but I'm going to bring it back here, that at no point does the drama of what actually is happening, the fact that, little factoid we did neglect to mention, all of the kids were fitted with a collar that will blow their neck open, basically, if they're in a danger zone, or which are like small zones. They've got maps and all that, or if everybody is not dead by the end of the game, everybody is dead. Like only one person is allowed to survive. So. The drama of that is never lost. It's never, even in those moments of like, it's not necessarily that the kids are accepting what's going on, but there is kind of a point. And I think that also is another portion of that theme of growing up, is accepting that some things are out of your control and you have to learn to live within confines and try to work out of those.
Those are the kids that survive. I mean, not to spoil the ending, but the kids that understand that, like it's going to get spoiled. It always gets spoiled. Noriko survives till the end, and he's kind of our protagonist. Like, he's kind of the main guy that we enter the movie through. We see his dad commit suicide, or he finds his dad having committed suicide early on in the film, like before all of this starts. So it's not, it is kind of good versus bad, like the transfer student is kind of a psychopath, the bad guy. But it's not a good versus evil type thing. Like, it's not the people acquainted with killing that survive. It's the people that are acquainted with death. It's the kid that's acquainted with death, right? Like, that knows. But yeah. So how the adolescent stuff manifests itself in the lighthouse is that, and this is the second scene, not my favorite one, but one of my favorite ones of the two that kind of, again, when this movie shines, is. He accidentally killed somebody earlier. That was witnessed by another girl. So that girl tries to poison him, but the food gets eaten by somebody else. So it becomes this kind of thing where all the girls start to turn on each other because who poisoned her, who did it. But it's not about that. Like, it quickly becomes about who had a crush on who, and you did this because of Noriko and all this stuff, and you've always hated me, or they call each other high school names like slut and stuff like that. I can't remember exactly, but
that's all. They just said slut.
Okay, it all bears out, and they all kill each other, and it's this total, again, it's high school girl fight. Give them some guns. This is what that would be.
Yeah. No, and that scene is one that stands out for me as well, because it shows that breakdown in pettiness too. I mean, you in the most serious manner possible, because you've just killed somebody, thinking you were going to kill somebody else. Then you've got all of the reasoning behind why it was going to, like, it is such a teenage thing. It's something that every single person can identify with to a point. And then it takes it that step further of well, what happens if you're forced to make decisions?
It's weird. In a way, maybe that's why it makes more sense to me, because there are any number of movies where the adult people in the film act like this.
Sure.
And to an extent, it's kind of like, Like you've just seen it so often. It's like, okay, human beings are suspicious by nature type thing.
Well,
But it's always kind of ridiculous. It's like the scene where somebody overhears something, but they don't overhear the whole thing, and the whole episode is about how they misunderstood something.
The telephone
stuff
game.
like that.
Yeah.
That's freaking ridiculous. But put it in this kind of absurd situation with kids dealing with emotions that they don't understand half the time, and it all of a sudden makes sense. Like it's completely watchable, extremely watchable.
Right, and I mean, and I would I think that's another thing that you're hitting on the head there is, I feel like on some level that's kind of what this was too. It's a deconstruction of that kind of concept.
Yeah.
That it's because again, those movies, when we talk about those movies, the main difference in when we talk about them thematically is we lose a word. Those movies, when you're talking about adults, it's about growing. But when you talk about kids, it's growing up. It's the same concept. It's just you're losing the word because the age difference. It's because they're just, there's an experience level there. But you watch those movies and you see those characters and you're like, you're acting like teenagers. Grow up, And here, it's like you're acting like teenagers. And now you're forced to grow up.
Right. And if you think we're lending meaning to this movie where there isn't any, I mean, if you haven't thought that yet during any of these podcasts so far, like, cool. But if you think we're especially doing that now, this movie is constructed so purposefully and so like it's incredibly tightly put together, I guess is what I'm saying. Like none of this is an accident.
No, and you mentioned it, the fact that it is tightly put together for as long as it is too. Like, I mean, an hour and 45 minutes.
That's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
It's a longer movie, and it holds all the way through.
Totally. And maybe the second scene that I wanted to talk about probably drives this home more than any. And it's a total throwaway. Like, I don't know if anybody would come away with this movie, from this movie, with this being their favorite scene. But it's where Sugimura, who is just one of the kids, his weapon ended up being just a GPS device. I don't think he actually got a weapon.
Right.
Or that was his tool. So he used it to track down Kotohiki, who he finds in kind of this warehouse, pretty much. She knows he's coming. She can tell he's coming. She's hiding, and she has a gun. She's trying to get away from him because she thinks he's coming to kill her, basically, or whatever. The world's gone to hell. She doesn't know. And when he finally she makes a noise, and he gets an idea of where she is, and she knows he knows where she's at. So she pops out and guns him down like right out of the gate. And he has a few lines. I think the first one is just, "You're so cute."
Yeah.
And it turns out he was just looking for her because he had always loved her. And she just breaks down and she's like, "You've never even talked to me.
How was I supposed to know?" And she says it over and over again. How am I supposed to know?
The perfect kind of manifestation of that, because that's a total high school relationship. Like, he's always loved her. He hasn't always loved her. He's just had the biggest crush on her.
And by the way, I want to just point out the literal, like the actual visual symbolism that so many people go through of, I build myself up to thinking there's no way I could ever date you, so you're just going to shoot me down.
It's so good, right? Like, and that's why none of this is an accident. Like,
no, not at all.
Takes all that clumsiness of crushes like that, of all just this weird, like, how do we human being when you're a teenager, and turns it into that scene where, oops, I shot him to death, when he just wanted to come say, it's great. It's freaking great.
And again, I think one of those huge themes is about growing and about learning who you are, and it's such a common theme. You hear it, you probably heard it a bunch of times on this show as it is, but those themes are so easily, they're so malleable in how you explain them and how you share them and how you use them, and this is a movie that absolutely uses that whole growing up thing in such a great way by not only not shying away from the awkwardness and that clumsiness of being a teenager, but also the awkwardness and clumsiness of adults not understanding kids, not wanting to understand kids in the same respect, not understanding adults or wanting to, and both of them needing a serious shock to grow up, to move past stuff, to get over it, and it's so good and fun, and there are a couple moments that are just kind of mean, and they're a little, it's so there's a sequence where one of the girls who makes it fairly far into the game meets one of her classmates, and the classmate is I love you. I loved you. I think you're the most beautiful girl in the world. Why can't we just, like, and he's also the guy. He's the one guy that's like, okay, we're all going to die. I'm a virgin. I don't want to be. And he threatens, he says, I could just push myself. I could put myself on top of you. And then she says, you could, but if you do, I'm going to fight back in every respect. And I love that sequence. And that's one of those moments where pressure on people can something that happens is you might do things you wouldn't necessarily think you could do, wouldn't want to do things, and you make rash decisions, and in many cases the person who's deep inside of you is the person that can come out, and in this case,
I mean, yeah, that's base desire, but he's like, he doesn't know, almost, like he's like thinking, this is love that I feel, and you're like, no, it's not.
It's there. I'm not saying this is like an excuse. What I'm saying is that they do a really good job of showing the weird pressures that in this case that teenage boy is getting, and the pressures that she as a teenage girl is going to be receiving all the time.
Gotcha.
And he is such a visual representation of it, and that like he's that ball of nervous testosterone. He's the balls of nervous testosterone. And she is, it's one of those moments of instructive growing up thing where he is so freaked out about like he's got a gun to her, and he's got the crossbow aimed at her, I think.
Yeah.
And
oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
And he is, he's I don't want to threaten you, but I want something out of this, and they both have that moment of weakness, and then they both have that moment of strength, and then they've both changed, and they both in that moment kind of grown up. And unfortunately he
changes to dead.
He grew up, he made a choice, and it's that like abusive relationship thing that I'm gonna hit you once, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He shot the arrow at her and it barely misses her and it scrapes her face. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah. There's hints of that. Again, I go back more to it. They're testing stuff out, but yes, I mean, but it's obviously that's there. Yeah.
I think that's a great scene for it. It shows the pressures of being a teenager in a very real way for both sexes in that particular case.
Yeah, and maybe that's a better encapsulation of this thing, like about how those pressures are made manifest. I mean, honestly, like, super amazing kudos to the makers of this thing, because I mean, this is like the cardinal sin of being an adult, right? You forget what it's like to be a kid. But I feel like somebody on that team at some point, somebody important was like, hey, you remember what it was like when a girl turned you down at school? It was like getting shot with like 30 bullets, It was
like, the worst thing in the world.
It was the worst. You died that day.
And I have to, I would hope that somebody said, for the same thing for the women in that case, that they said, what happens when you're pressured? You just want to fight back, but in some cases you can't, it's not viable. It's not acceptable, quote unquote, whatever.
Yeah.
And this is a case where you do see that with a couple of the girls where the objectification thing kind of comes into play, and it just doesn't play. They just turn it around, which is, real life.
Yeah. So all of this comes to a head, people dropping like flies, and there's way more good scenes and good deaths than we've, talked about. Each of them with kind of these heavy to simpler undertones of all adolescence and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it gets down to the two transfer students. One's bad, one's good. The good one, who has been in a battle royale before and tells this story about having or accidentally killing. No, it was him and his girlfriend left, and his girlfriend turned on him, I think is what it was, right? And in falling down the hill, kind of gut reaction, shot her. Never blamed her, of course, blamed the people that were in charge of the game, which I think was Kitano again. Was he the same teacher over that?
They imply that he is involved heavily in the entire thing.
So that transfer student takes out the other transfer student who, again, fantastic scene. The bad transfer student plays a fantastic force for evil, kind of. And then towards the end, when he gets his eyes taken out and he turns towards the camera is the demon amongst the fire that he is. He gets taken out by the good transfer student, and they stage a fake victory where the teacher kind of sends the troops off, like, because supposedly they have microphones on their collars. They hear the last transfer student turn on Noriko and Shuya and shoot them both, so he's the winner. And the troops are like, okay, let's go out there and verify the bodies. And the teacher's like, Kitano is like, nope, take off, we're done, you're good. So they make it back to Kitano, and it turns out that, of course, it was an act, and all three have survived, and it's so they could get at him. He has some wonderful lines that he delivers in his wonderful way, and it comes at them with a gun, forces Shuya to gun him down, with Noriko standing by.
And this is the scene where we find out just before Shuya shoots him that Kitano is Noriko's father. And there was a moment.
I did not even catch that.
Yeah, there's it's right in that same sequence where he mentions
they have like a long glance between each other,
and he says something like, I can't do this with my daughter, or something about seeing my daughter.
Well,
and
he
it's
says
her.
His daughter hates him, but that was the phone call he had earlier where she tells him that his breath stinks and all that stuff.
I see. Okay, maybe I'm wrong there. I got the assumption that Noriko and him were related.
They do share that look, and that would make sense, but I didn't gather.
And so maybe I just misread or misheard the subtitles. It's possible.
That wouldn't be a bad ending, honestly.
In any case, Kitano is shot down by Shuya.
He is. That's very true.
And we find out that Kitano, the gun that he held on them, was a water gun.
Yeah. And at the which Shuya utters the words, "I made a promise to defend Noriko." It's the perfect, again, this thing just becomes complete melodrama almost, with all the stuff going on and the way they tie it in to high school. But with a statement like that, I'm like, dude, you didn't, like, number one, I don't even know if I can explain. It's the time I went to my parents and was like, I love her, Dad. So I don't know, it's a perfect ending to that movie, and it's also perfect because after they shoot him, his phone rings, the teacher, and he gets up and answers his phone, and
dying.
It's his daughter again.
He's dying, and it's the funniest thing because he's just laying on the ground for like a good 10 seconds, if not longer. They're just like, he's gone. And then his phone rings and he just gets up and sits down on the couch with bullet wounds all over him. And basically, and he says, I'm not coming home.
And she said something rude, and he just throws it to the ground like, you suck, or something.
Yeah, he says like, who needs you anyways? And then and then he eats the very last cookie that Noriko had made for Shuya.
And dies.
On the
couch. And it's telling that the three of them, like, there's an extended shot of them looking at him like, what just happened? And it's the only one of those shots in the entire movie. Like, it's the only time that people, that the characters in the movie especially, are allowed to look at something absurd and be like, that was nuts.
That was weird.
Thing. Yeah.
Which I love.
It's a great movie. It's really good.
Good movie. That was Battle Royale.
Yeah, like 14
out
stars.
Out of 15.
At least.
Yeah. Very good movie, Battle Royale. Next week's book club for movie selection is gonna be Steven Soderbergh's Logan Lucky. That's what we're going to watch next week. So take a gander, check that out. I know it's streaming right now on Amazon Prime. So if you've got that, take a look. It's got a great cast. Kylo Ren's in it. James Bond is in it. Channing Tatum.
Oh, Magic Mike. Come on.
Channing Tatum. I'll call him Gambit. He's going to preemptively be Gambit.
Oh man. Is he Gambit?
Yeah. Logan Lucky. So that's coming at you next week.
I love it. I had no idea it was coming, and I'm excited.
Hit us up at podcast@bookclubformovies.com with your thoughts on it. Let us know what you think. If you have thoughts on Battle Royale, let us know. We'll read them up next week. But
Happy to come back to that.
I think right now it's time to get to the rest of the show.
It is. And I figured I'd carry with me the theme of subtitled Asian movies. And I dove into, so a little bit of backstory on this movie. We went to PAX. We went to a panel with Swery. and he talked about literally everything under the sun. And in it, he had a slide with like 4 movie posters on it and was like, these are good movies, and then moved on.
All right,
So
fair.
I watched a movie recommended to me by Sweary this week.
All right.
Called The Raid Redemption.
Oh, man. So good.
It's amazing.
That has some of the best fight scenes ever.
So good.
I love that movie. I actually, funny, when we were in New Orleans, that was on one of the afternoons when we were just
Really?
kind of hanging out, and Ian and I sat down and watched it.
I see there's a sequel too. I haven't seen it.
Yes,
Is it the
there
first
is. And
Okay.
there is a freaking car chase in that Yeah, no.
one? So I should sequel.
Oh,
as well,
yeah.
is what you're saying. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's a real good movie. It's it focuses on, I'm gonna get too nitty gritty, I'm sure, but
Not at all.
Silat or Pencak Silat, or
Indonesian.
it's the Indonesian. The umbrella is Silat, but I
see.
read
It's an
yesterday.
Indonesian film. That's all I'm at.
From what I understand, it focuses on trapping range, and all that means is that it's a lot less about hitting at full extension and or grappling, which also means that it's largely about the super close quarters kind of like it gets deep into kind of the economics of movement.
Sure.
Like they're doing the smallest moves in a lot of ways. I mean, think about, I feel like a lot of times you see Filipino or Indonesian martial arts, and you think about the small dude that's just kind of running circles around the big dude.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah,
imagine that, but they're all small dudes.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. And no, you mentioned economy of movement. It's huge because it's about min-maxing your movement. You know, that's what it is.
Lots of elbows, lots of weapons. You know, there's lots of weapons. This is the bloodiest martial arts movies I've ever seen, I think.
Well, you still haven't watched Ricky O, which that's gonna.
Even then, like I feel like semi cool looking exploding heads aren't as brutal as this freaking thing.
It's brutal, man. Some of those fight scenes are just.
It's nuts. Like, so the premise, but for everybody else, is all these cops are moving into an apartment high rise that's being taken over by the criminal element.
Yeah,
essentially.
It's the Indonesian version of Dredd.
That's true. Yeah, the most recent Dredd. It's been a while since I've seen the older Dredd. Is that what the older Dredd is too?
No.
Okay, most recent Dredd. Yeah, that's it. He's going into that building, and that's where the majority of the movie is spent.
Yeah.
But what the direction does, this is the most striking thing to me. This is what I love most about the whole thing. In conjunction with that fighting style and that economy of movement and kind of that closer quarters, but not necessarily grappling, even though there is grappling, the camera stays in that space also. And when it does that, it brings itself in even closer a lot of times by following those small movements. Like it's just, imagine like not even a waist up shot, like a breast up shot of somebody on the floor, and the camera is sideways, and as he gets up off the floor, it'll follow him, right? So kind of like a clockwork type movement, which you don't see a lot, and is used repeatedly into such effect that you are closer in these combat scenarios and it pulls back sometimes. You get, because there's lots of choreography that you don't want to lose, but the way that pulls you in, I wasn't really expecting. Like, it was really cool.
It's so good. And there's the one guy. So the main fighter, his name is Iko Uai.
Yes.
Something like that. There's a dude.
Uko Iwai. I don't know.
There's another dude though, and I think his name is I think his character's name in the movie is it's Mad Dog. Yayan Ruyan.
I don't know who that is, but I know who that is.
You know exactly who it is, because he is like the best part of the movie. He's this like he's like the enforcer for the drug lord, and that guy is such a great fighter, and watching him and
he's amazing. Is he in he can't be in the sequel actually, but
that guy is incredible, and the fight scenes are super brutal, and there is one that's kind of midway through the movie where he gets into it with one of the cops, and it's one he ends up killing. He breaks his neck. That fight scene threw me off the first time. I was like, this cop is gonna, like, I thought he was gonna pull something out, and nope.
No, it's like this movie pulls no punches.
Not even a little bit.
And that scene escalates. The one he fights, it's the main sergeant, I think, because the story is fine too, and it unfolds really well, I think, and the performance is actually really cool beyond all of the choreography. Like it switches back and forth between being kind of set piece the movie. Like they make use of that environment completely. Like, what if I were to push this guy out, because the center of the building has that kind of open area that just goes all the way up. Like there's a big hole in the middle of it.
Right. It's a stairwell.
Like, what if I tackle this guy through the door and send him just like flipping through the air until he breaks his back on the lower level banister type thing? Like, it's fantastic. But that movie where he fights the cop and kills the cop, and then it becomes kind of the main bad guy, because the story is the main good guy. His brother is in there, but he's part of the bad guy group, so they have kind of a back and forth, and they don't agree with each other's lifestyles, and they end up parting ways, on good terms, but still on opposite sides of the fence. It's cool. It's a good story either way. It's done well. But
huge fan.
Where after that guy kills the cop, the showdown in the third act is basically the good guy and his brother bad guy fighting that one guy alone. And
it's so good. That whole scene is like every time you think it's over, it just keeps going.
It is not.
And it's so brutal, man.
It is. It's crazy. Okay, Raid 2.
Hey,
all right.
Only pseudo related. Did you hear that they're making another Ip Man movie?
Yeah. Well, I think we talked about that when I was making my Ip Man runs.
Did we?
Ip Man.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
They should.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. Ip Man 3 was, I liked better than 2.
Yeah, I remember you
not
mentioning
better than
that.
1. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while.
All right.
I still watch that that elevator stairway fight scene. Like I look it up on YouTube and watch it like every other week.
It's just fun. Sure. Good times.
More importantly, what did you watch?
Okay, I've got kind of a litany of movies here, but I'm gonna try and keep it short and sweet.
All right.
So I got 4 more movies, but I'm gonna bundle them together in 2 little packages.
All right.
I was trying to get through Saws 2 through 5 this weekend, and I just failed miserably. I got Saws 2 and 3. So both Saw 2 and 3 were directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. Both were written by Lee Whannell, who also wrote and starred in the first movie. So both of these Saws 2 and 3 both also have Shawnee Smith and Tobin Bell reprising their same roles, as Jigsaw Killer and Amanda. And then there are a couple people that kind of float throughout both of them. Like Lee Whannell is in kind of all the movies and flashbacks. Dina Meyer is in the movies in kind of the same role. Wahlberg, also similar thing. Donnie Wahlberg's the main guy. He's the main driving force in Saw 2.
Nice.
And
underrated actor, that fellow.
Saw 2 is not bad. It's a better Saw movie than I remembered it being. It's still not utterly the best thing in the world, but it's actually a really good addition to the story, where Dina Meyer was in the first movie. She was aware of the Jigsaw Killer. Donnie Wahlberg's character is now the cop that's found the Jigsaw Killer.
Okay.
They've got his home and his like workshop under surveillance. They're with him now, and they're trying to get information out of him, because we find out that he has taken their kid, or Donnie Wahlberg's kid, and put him into a game along with Shawnee Smith's character again, and other people in a house that's got rooms that are filled with they were all given a poison, and so they're all looking for keys that will open doors that also have syringes filled with antidote. And of course, at no point does anybody ever actually get the antidote, because they're all fighting for themselves.
Spoiler.
Good movie though. It's got some really good scenes in it. One of the opening sequences, the dude gets shot in the eye. But in a very Saw-like way. This movie has one of the 2 sequences that I think are the most just I don't cringe a lot at movies. This is something that
cringing here.
This is something that makes me cringe. So Shawnee Smith's character is we know from the first movie and from here, she mentions it again that she was a junkie. And supposedly, or not supposedly, there's a key with the syringe in a giant tub of syringes.
I've heard of this, yeah.
And she doesn't she gets thrown into it. And just the visual of it and the way it looks like, and then she starts throwing syringes around, digging, and it's just, oh man, knowing, pass. The other one is there's another moment where a guy has Jigsaw did surgery on the dude's eye and he put a key behind his eye, and so the guy has to cut his eye open, and that's in the third one.
See.
So the second movie though is it's a strong entry. This is also the movie though that kind of effectively to me gives a little bit of the mystery that's always going to be in every one of these movies away every single time, which is you learn that the movies are not always presented to you in the same time period. So Saw 2, you're watching they're watching these monitors of the people in the thing, and Jigsaw keeps telling him that his son is fine, he's in a safe place, he's this or that, the other thing, and everything that he says is a clue, and nobody wants to listen to him because they think he's psycho, and he just says, I just want you to follow the rules of the game, and everything goes your way. Nobody wants to follow the rules of the game, and so you find out that they figure out where the video is coming from, so they go to the house, and then they find out that the video is just pre-recorded video, and so it was happening somewhere else, and it already happened, and that his son was in the room with them the entire time in a safe, right next to them in the room, and so you find out that Shawnee Smith has now started working with Jigsaw and is taking over for him because he's dying of cancer and can't do it.
I mean, if I know anything about Saw, it's from the beginning that those movies are about messing with the viewer audience as much as they are messing with the characters in the movie. Yeah.
I mean, I think originally they were. I don't know that they are now. They've kind of gone up their own butt a little bit. I still like them. They're fun, but they're not. It's
a little more buddy.
The movies, the movies, unfortunately, just like I said, you figure it out. You're able to pick out which characters are going to be, he's going to end up being a bad guy. And it may not even be in that movie, but you'll be like, he's a bad guy. And then in that movie, never turns up, nothing happens. 2 movies later, you find out, oh yes, he was. So they do that. They play with time a lot. And that's the other thing is they retcon things. So things that happened previously so they can fill out story gaps, which is cool. It's fine. Saw 3 though, and this one rolls in at 1 hour and 48 minutes, longer than freaking Battle Royale. And yet also one of, if not the best Saw movies out there.
Really?
So has Shawnee Smith as your main character now with Tobin Bell. Bahar Sumek, she's the other main for the movie. Along with Angus McFadden, who I absolutely love. That dude is amazing. He was one of the best parts of Braveheart.
Just his name. Yeah.
And his name is Angus McFadden. So, and when you see him, you'll recognize him. But this one, Saw 3 is cool because the premise now has moved to Jigsaw is dying. They know he's dying. Everybody knows he's dying. So Shawnee Smith kidnaps a doctor to keep him alive, and the game is she has to keep him alive and his heart rate going. Otherwise, the necklace she's wearing blows up and kills her, blows her head up. But she only has to keep him alive long enough for the other game that's actually going on to complete. And the other game is one of those really, really, really interesting twists in the Saw universe where Angus McFadden's character is a father whose son was run over, and he is now given the opportunity to make decisions about whether or not the people involved. So there's like a woman who saw it but didn't say anything. She didn't testify. The judge who passed everything through very quickly and only gave the guy who drove the car 6 months in jail, and then the guy himself. And it all comes down to him and him having to make decisions about Jigsaw's traps, hurting himself to save somebody else's life for the person that ultimately let his son die. Really, really, really good twist. Really good way of putting that together. And it's freaking good movie, man. That is a good Saw movie. That's a good
Best
horror
Saw
movie. I think it's my favorite one out of all of them. Yeah.
All right.
I really like it. It's a really, really good movie, period.
All right.
So that's Saw movies. I'm going to try and get 4 and 5 this week. We'll see how much further I get. The next set of movies are Dark Castle movies. Dark Castle was a production company that was created by Robert
Stephen
Zemeckis.
King. Yes.
Robert Zemeckis. Because his favorite director was William Castle. William Castle directed all of these movies in the 50s. And he was the guy that everybody, whenever you've heard about the gimmicks in the theater, they were his movies. So you've heard of the one that I think a lot of people might recognize, or at least visually from the name, is The Tingler. And it was the one where people would sit down in the seats, and during the movie, towards the end, the people claimed they were electrocuted. They were shocked really fast. They weren't shocked. It was just like a really heavy
vibrator or something.
It was it was a really heavy vibrator that was just right there. They did it with House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts, both of which are the movies I watched the remakes of.
Oh.
So the William Castle movies I love. They're great. They're great movies. But these two movies, 13 Ghosts and House on Haunted Hill, they were created, or they were remade for that production company because they're both William Castle movies, and they were actually put together and produced by his daughter, which I thought was really cool. And I saw both of these when they came out. 13 Ghosts came out in 2001, House on Haunted Hill in 1999. 13 Ghosts, I watched them out of order because I have a real strong affinity for House on Haunted Hill.
The original or this one?
The new one. I like the William Castle ones are amazing. And actually, I'm kind of kicking myself. Didn't think about it, but the original house from House on Haunted Hill is a Frank Lloyd Wright house that's in just down the road from Griffith Park.
We should have gone.
I didn't think about it. It's an amazing house too.
Next time.
But these movies. So we're gonna start with 13 Ghosts. The 2001 edition came out, it rolls in an hour and 31 minutes. This one, funny enough, has a ghost written credit by James Gunn.
Really?
So that's kind of fun. James Gunn, always been in the horror industry, loves horror movies.
Right,
so,
that's true. Before Guardians.
Yeah. This is a good movie, man. It stars Tony Shalhoub, Matthew Lillard, Shannon Elizabeth, and F. Murray Abraham.
Wow.
I love this movie. It's not like script-wise, dialogue-wise, it's certainly not the greatest thing in the world. This is a movie that's style over substance in almost every respect, and it works. Lots of great style here. The ghosts themselves are all amazing. The plot here is that F. Murray Abraham basically wants to kind of live forever and live beyond everything. So he's going to collect these 12 ghosts that died in awful ways, in violent, horrible ways. He binds them in this giant house that looks like it's made of mirrors and has all these incantations and weird languages written on every surface. So he has them all in this basement. Matthew Lillard's character is a psychic that helps him catch these wraiths. And so he's built this machine that was talked about, like the 1600s, about how you get these ghosts together, and then you add the 13th ghost, which is a ghost of pure love, and everything happens, all this stuff. And so it's, big, whatever, who cares? It's really, people are in the house and they're chased by ghosts. The ghosts they range from,
you mean
ghost. One is one that has it's a little boy with an arrow through his head. There's one that's just a torso. There's one that is like this crazy giant dude he's got railroad spikes all in his body and stuff.
Phineas Gage.
Yeah, that's it. The designs are amazing.
It's a good joke.
The house, like I said, the design of this movie is great. All the actors are fine. It is a lack of story thing. It's just kind of a scripting thing. The dialogue is just a little whatever. But
gotcha.
Matthew Lillard is killer.
Dialogue.
He's super fun. It's a cool flick. House on Haunted Hill, though, I legitimately just love this movie. The style, the look of it, the fact that it uses that really disturbing style of people moving in kind of stop motion, but then they're like, they turn and then their heads are like a blur because they're moving their heads so fast. And then they're in stop motion and they're like really, really effective use of that. Super creepy. So this one, hour 33 minutes, another cast that's out of this world. Jeffrey Rush, Famke Janssen, Taye Diggs, Ali Larter, Chris Kattan, Peter Gallagher, Bridget
we definitely
Wilson
talked about this,
Sampras, because it's got Sonya Blade in it.
Wait, Pete Sampras?
His husband, his wife. Bridget, Sonya Blade is married to Pete Sampras in real life.
Fair enough.
And of course, our main big bad for the movie, Jeffrey Combs, who's always my favorite. This is a movie that has enough levity and humor to it where like Chris Kattan really actually fits and hits the nail like it's perfect, because he plays the role that he has to play in. It's great. He's really funny
you've
while
successfully described Chris Kattan.
While also being really like he's very frustrated with the situation, and he immediately accepts the fact that they're all gonna die. He is right away, because he knows what the house is.
Peak Chris Kattan, in fact.
So
it sounds like.
it is. It's really good. So the basic plot here is Famke Janssen is married to Jeffrey Rush. Jeffrey Rush is essentially playing Vincent Price, who in this case runs giant amusement parks. She decides, I want to have my birthday party at the house on Haunted Hill, which is a former insane asylum where all these weird medical experiments were done. The two of them don't get along. They hate each other. So it's a marriage of convenience in some level. So she creates this guest list, sends it to him. He shreds it, creates a new guest list, which then gets deleted by internet. And then a new guest list is created with all of the characters that show up. We find out all the characters, all the characters that show up are related to people that were murdered at the asylum. Scary. There's all sorts of really great visuals in this movie. The house is incredible. The way they built it out, and all the really weird stuff there's a room that has this weird spinning thing in it. And they say that it's whatever would,
is it a fan?
It's it's a light that has, it's one of those things where it goes around and like there's a picture and it moves with when the thing spins around, there's like a picture in it. And if it's not spinning, it just looks like nothingness, and then you spin it and it's like, I don't know, it was weird. Whatever would make a madman sane would make a sane man mad, something like that. It's a cool flick, man. I really love the movie House on Haunted Hill. I don't know what else to say about it other than it's fun. It's got some real good gore effects to it. It's got some bad early 2000s, late 90s CGI to it, but
cool.
you forgive that because everything else is great. All of the actors are killer. Jeffrey Rush puts on this, like, he was trying to be John Waters, and then they liked it so much that they turned him. They basically said, "You've gone from John Waters into Vincent Price, who John Waters was kind of wanting to be in the first place in some ways. So we're gonna go with that."
Was Vincent Price in the original?
He was.
Okay.
He was indeed in the original. Yeah. The original is, it varies slightly in that there was an actual house. It wasn't an insane asylum. It was a similar thing where, the other crux to this, how he gets everybody to show up for this birthday party, is that they, if they stay in the house overnight, they win $1 million.
Oh,
and so
that old thing. Okay.
Yeah, and in the original it was $10,000, stay the night.
Whoa!
And it was, I know, crazy. Similar things do happen.
Cover my plane ticket here.
There are a couple of, right now, exactly. Inflation's a bastard. There are a couple things that do cross paths, but overall it is just it's its own thing, and it's good, and I really like it. And that is the Book Club for Movies, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. Again, next week's Book Club for Movies selection is going to be Steven Soderbergh's Logan Lucky. Hit us up at podcast@bookclubformovies.com. Head on over to Twitter, Book Club for Movies. We're over there. We're on other things. Check us out and contact us. We want to hear from you. Let us know. Give us some suggestions for movies you want to watch that you'd like to have us discuss. Give us suggestions for more content. What do you want to see us do? Do you want to see us do more video content? Any video content? We haven't really done any of that for this. What do you want to see? How can we help? How can we be involved? Let us know. We're a book club for movies.